What's going on, Los Angeles, LAFB fam, Bruin Nation? How we doing? The Madman here for all of your UCLA football needs. And wanted to sort of jump in here solo for this particular beginning of the week to talk a little bit about not just the aftermath of the Northwestern game, but some interesting phenomena moving forward. And obviously, we'll have Thriller, and we're very excited about getting Wayne on this week to really get his thoughts on the state of the program moving forward. But wanted to jump on here to just talk about kind of next steps with this team in this season. So obviously, Bruins fall short to Northwestern, 17-14. Similar stories, similar themes. It just feels like it's a repeat week over week. Bruins fall behind 17-0. Make it 17-3 at the half, have sort of a valiant comeback over two straight possessions, but then again, with an opportunity to take the lead late, two chances, and ultimately offensive line play, penalties, lack of discipline, lack of being able to go the length of the field, bites the Bruins again, and now here we are sitting at ourselves at 0-4. And so I don't want to belabor the situation in terms of what's going on the field. Very similar story to what we saw against UNLV, down 23-0. This is now 4 consecutive games where the team just hasn't been able to get out of the gates with any sort of a momentum. But I think at this point, the mentality has to shift, right? There's a realism in terms of this season, sitting at 0-4. The UNLV, New Mexico, Northwestern stretch in the schedule was the soft part of the schedule. And now moving forward, you're getting into the crux of Big Ten play, and you're looking at a situation where UCLA is going to be essentially a double-digit underdog in every game the rest of the way. And so very real possibility that this season goes 0-12. Perhaps there's a break at some point. You catch a team maybe taking things not as seriously on an emotional low. These are 18 to 22-year-olds. Where you can kind of clip them perhaps at home, maybe Maryland at home, maybe even Nebraska at home to get to 1-11. And I think at this point it would be a minor miracle for this team to get to 2-10. So we're staring at an 0-12 season, and we just have to face that reality on the field. I don't think there's any point belaboring it. I don't think there's any point trying to dissect it and pick at the scabs. It is where it is. And as a program, this is a total rebuild. And I've mentioned it, that this is a 2-year rebuild. It's not just about 2025, but it's also going to be a total rebuild in 2026, particularly when you think about the loss of personnel. And you got to believe both Nico and Iamaleava are going to be exploring their options in the offseason here, given their marketability has taken a huge hit, but Nico's talent is undeniable. And you have to believe that someone is going to take a chance on Nico, and he may want a fresh opportunity. So there's a very real possibility of both the Iamaleavas leaving UCLA. I think there's a possibility of Quasi Gilmer leaving UCLA and looking at other opportunities as well, particularly if he continues to kind of stack good performances here, ups his nil value, and potentially could be that missing wide receiver piece for a team that is on the cusp of winning a championship or on the cusp of really true deep contention in terms of the college football playoff. You look at Gary Smith III, you look at Keanu Williams, both of those guys are seniors. You look at John Vaughns, he's a senior. And then you look at Keyshawn Bennett on the edge, he's a senior. And then you talk about Key Lawrence in his last year of eligibility. And then on the offensive side of the ball, you're looking at Unije, you're looking at DiGiorgio, and you're looking at Cortland Ford, all seniors. So when you look at that landscape of the folks that are departing, next year's roster, no matter who the coach is, it's going to have to be a patchwork group where you're really plucking guys out of the transfer portal. So again, Bruin fans, we have to think of this as a 2-year rebuild. But I think what was interesting about this particular game against Northwestern is something that Tim Skipper said in terms of the strategy for this game, where he said, look, we saw some things on film where we really wanted to try and exploit Nico Iamaleava's running ability, and we found some gaps in the defense to be able to do so. And yet again, Nico led the team in rushing. We're 4 games into the season. He is still the leading rusher by a significant amount. And that's not a recipe for success necessarily. He had that 132-yard run to set up that second field goal to make the game 17-6. And then when the Bruins got the ball back, that really nice 29-yard deep ball to Quasi Gilmer, starting a nice little balance of run and throw on the road to that particular big play. But outside of that, again, it was an absolute slog for the Bruins against Northwestern. But I thought that triggered a very interesting conversation for us to talk about here. And that is, are Tim Skipper's incentives aligned with the incentives of UCLA football? And what I mean by that is, Tim Skipper, obviously in an interim capacity, you're not going to set up the type of football search committee that UCLA has just done with Bob Myers, with Adam Peters, with the folks that they have in terms of that committee, in terms of Casey Wasserman and Eric Kendricks, and ultimately make a decision on Tim Skipper being your permanent coach. It's just not going to happen. The optics don't suffice it. The politics don't suffice it. The public outcry doesn't suffice it. And so Tim Skipper is essentially on now an 8-game audition here to essentially look for his next coaching job. And he was the interim head coach in parts of 2023 as well as parts of 2024 with Fresno State, had a 7-7 record. Now he's going to put a 9-game body of work together here at UCLA. So he's going to be the head coach for 23 games. And that is a sample size where he can go out and potentially get a head coaching job at the FBS level, albeit probably not a Power 4 job, but certainly I think a Group of 5 job. And so when you look at this from Tim Skipper's vantage point, Tim Skipper is still trying to win football games. And so he's picking players and plays and schemes where they are trying to still win football games, and they're trying to obviously do the very best that they possibly can. But you wonder at this stage, is that what they should be doing from a football program perspective? Because the reality of the situation is this team is 0-4. It's going to be 0-5 against Penn State. You still have a road trip to Ohio State. You still have a road trip to Indiana. As we talked about, the record is going to be the record. There's absolutely zero shot. You have a better chance of getting hit by lightning than UCLA making a bowl game this year. And quite frankly, anything beyond a win is going to be sort of a stretch. And so Skipper is still sort of looking at this as, how do I play Nico? How do I run with him? How do I sort of exemplify his skills? How do I leverage a Quasi Gilmer? How do I make sure Isaiah Chisholm and John Vaughns are in the right spots defensively? But is that what we need moving forward, considering everything that I mentioned about these players? Are some of these guys going to go? And so is there a world here where the better opportunity for UCLA football from a longer-term perspective is to really just think of these next 2 months as an extended training camp? And at what point do you maybe give Luke Duncan a couple of starts at quarterback? At what point do you have a feature back situation in your backfield and really let Javion Thomas and Anthony Woods battle it out for who's going to be RB1 next year? Both those guys are juniors. Why don't you have a game where you give one guy 25 to 30 carries, and then have the next game you give the other guy 25 to 30 carries, and you rotate and you see who your primary RB1 is? Is there a world where you play Jack Peterson more than Hudson Habermill? Because Jack Peterson's a junior, Hudson Habermill is a senior. Is there a world where you start playing Jalen Woods more at linebacker over John Vaughns, because Jalen Woods still has eligibility after this season and John Vaughns does not? Do you start playing the younger guys in the secondary versus the more experienced guys? Because, again, it's an opportunity for eligibility downstream, and these could be your building blocks in this rebuild when you get to the other side in 2026 and 2027. When you think about the offensive line, you probably have 3 anchors right now, longer term: Sam Yoon, Julian Armella, and Eugene Brooks. Is there a world where you start mixing and matching at tackle spots, at guard spots? Sam Yoon has played a ton of center. Do you want to have him off center, just given that body type? Could he potentially play left or right guard? And so it's a very interesting conversation right now. Tim Skipper is trying to get the best 22 on the field today, right now, to try and finish out this season and win football games, but also as an audition, as an interview opportunity for his next job. But the question is, should UCLA be playing their quote-unquote best 22, or should they be playing everybody in a rotational sense to really kind of set up who the next coach is going to have in the 2026 season and beyond? So it's kind of an interesting dilemma here where everyone's trying to do the right thing, but Skipper's incentives may not actually be aligned with the long-term incentives of the football program. And that's why it's so hard when you make an in-season coaching change, because you make that change, but the reality is the market for coaches doesn't open up until the end of November, beginning of December, and that's when you actually put your head coach in place. So in between, it is this rock and a hard place where oftentimes the interim is auditioning for that particular job itself. And in that case, it works. But here it's very clear. Tim Skipper is not a viable candidate for UCLA's head coaching position moving forward, just given the circumstances and the ecosystem around this football program that led to the dismissal of DeShaun Foster. So you've got this hired gun coming in that's going to sort of approach it from the perspective of giving him the best opportunity moving forward. But is that the best opportunity for the football program moving forward? So just something interesting to look out for in the weeks to come, where in terms of the decisions that Tim Skipper may or may not make. And so folks, wanted to just sort of jump on here and provide those thoughts. We obviously got Penn State coming up this week. Wayne will be on with Thriller and I to really talk more holistically about the larger sense of the program. Obviously, we're going to be covering each game for you. We're going to be breaking it down for you. But we also understand that this is now a glorified training camp here in 2025. So our focus is going to be more on the macro of the program, what we have to look forward to. We're going to deep dive more of the coaching search. We're going to talk about Wayne, about more of his thoughts of the committee. He was on that Zoom call that had 100 members with Martin Jarman a couple of weeks ago, right on that Sunday when DeShaun Foster was dismissed. So get his thoughts there and just overall impressions of the pulse of the program. But wanted to get on, see you guys. It's been a few days, and we'll be right back with you a few days from now with my main man Thriller and the Silver Fox Wayne Cook. And before I sign off, gotta pay the bills around here as always. You see that Sleeper app ad on the bottom. Really leverage that promo code UCLA LAFB. You get a $100 match bonus on your first $100 of betting. And so here's a little secret of the Sleeper app. It's more than just a platform for season-long fantasy leagues. This year, millions of users enjoyed playing fantasy sports on Sleeper, but the app offers so much more. You got live stats, you got a news feed, and you got that real-time chat where you're engaging with other users about individual plays and performances during the NFL and NBA seasons. So download the #1 sports app today and experience it for yourself, and let them know that the guys from the LAFB network sent you, and really hit that promo code of UCLA LAFB. And so fans, we'll be back together in a few days. Madman Thriller always got your back when it comes to UCLA. Please hit that like and subscribe button as we continue to grow this community. We're not going anywhere. We're sticking with these beloved Bruins of ours, these mighty, gutty little Bruins. Hey, we're there for the good times. We're there for the bad times. We're there for the ups. We're there for the downs. We're not going anywhere. And not only are we not going anywhere, but we're going to continue to double down on our coverage, not just for football, but we're really going to be gearing up very seriously about basketball this season and have you covered end-to-end with Mick Cronin and the whole basketball team. So stay with us. We love you guys. As always, times are tough, but we'll get through it. Be loud, be proud, be passionate Bruins. And like I always say, fours up forever.